The US Supreme Court declined to halt the state of Alabama from proceeding with the nation's first execution using nitrogen gas. The method has never been used before for capital punishment. The ruling came after the convicted murderer Kenneth Smith approached the court requesting the court to stay his execution. It's scheduled for Thursday. Kenneth Smith was convicted in the 1988 killing of one Elizabeth Sennett. My colleague, Hemkawa Soroya, gives you more details.
Smith and his accomplice were hired by Elizabeth's husband, Charles Sennett. Charles was a Christian minister who had taken out a large insurance policy on his wife. Smith and his accomplice killed Elizabeth by stabbing her repeatedly and beating her with blunt objects. Charles Sennett later committed suicide. Smith and his accomplice were both convicted and sentenced to death. Smith's accomplice was executed in 2010. Smith, on the other hand, survived a botched lethal injection in 2022. During the execution attempt, state officials repeatedly tried but failed to place the necessary intravenous lines for a central line in his collarbone area. They eventually had to call off the execution. Smith's botched execution was the third consecutive instance in the state where officials encountered problems or delays trying to insert intravenous lines for a scheduled lethal injection. The failed execution attempt triggered a prompt review of Alabama's death penalty procedures. Now onto this execution method. It's called nitrogen hypoxia. The method is designed to deprive the inmate of oxygen. This by placing a mask that's connected to a cylinder of nitrogen over his face. According to the state protocol, nitrogen gas will be administered for at least 15 minutes to the inmate or 5 minutes following a flatline indication on the EKG. However, whichever is longer here. The Alabama Attorney General's office also told a federal judge that the nitrogen gas will cause unconsciousness within seconds and cause death within minutes. Smith's attorneys have argued that the mask the state plans to use is not airtight and oxygen seeping in could subject Smith to a prolonged execution, possibly leaving him in a vegetative state instead of killing him. Earlier this month, the UN Human Rights Office also called on the state to halt this planned execution. The UN office said it could amount to torture and violate American commitments under international law.
We'll listen in to what experts had to say on the nitrogen hypoxia method.
So they'll have to strap him down, but in some very forceful way. The mask will be applied and that will be strapped to his face. His head will be strapped to some kind of mechanism so he doesn't turn his head. And this is going to be the position that he's going to be in. Now, he's terrified, rightly so. And this is how execution will begin. So when he's breathing nitrogen gas, assuming that there's no leak, assuming that it all is conducted properly, there's a pretty good chance that he'll have a seizure.